The standings. Johnson, we saw a little bit yesterday. He is 8-1 with his Naya Zoo deck. And we'll be underway here in just a moment as players are resolving mulligans. And this will kick off our day. Don't forget, we do have our brand new summer sale coming for you guys at 11 a.m. So just a couple hours from now, we'll unveil that. You can get you an idea of what we're doing at Star City Games. But for now, we see a Misty Rainforest be sacrificed. Tom going to search up a land, and round number 10 is underway.
Tom also with 2 main deck copies of Spellskite. This card is extremely problematic for Erik.
A breeding pool is where the boss is going to begin. He starts at 17. We'll see what the 1-drop is. He'll go with a Noble Hierarch, a little bit of acceleration. And Johnson will take a draw step, picked up a copy of Arid Mace. It looks like he does have a copy of Wild Mikado in hand. He'll start by sacrificing a Bloodstained Mire. There's a Stomping Ground. So down to 17 goes Johnson, but his actual life total really doesn't matter in this matchup. We have seen Tom attempt to go regular at least once this weekend.
It's odd. In this matchup, I've often been so liberal with my life total that I have almost died via damage.
It can happen.
You have Mutagenic Growth, you have Eidolon, your mana base, and you need to play as fast and as powerful as possible in this matchup, so you're just throwing caution to the wind when it comes to your life total. And I've gotten to spots where Noble Hierarch or Spellskite backed up by Pump Spells has become a concern.
Here is Serum Visions. We'll also draw a card, now Scry 2. You saw Johnson start off with a Wild Mikado. It's only a 2-2 right now, but it'll be a 3-3 soon enough. Ross happy with what he's found. He'll leave both of those cards on top of his deck. I'll play a copy of Inkmoth Nexus and just simply pass the turn back over to Johnson. Johnson will draw a card. Picked up a copy of Sacred Foundry. Mikado is a 3-3 now. Johnson down to 15.
Achievement unlocked.
Yeah, very hard to achieve. Here comes the Mikado. Ross down to 14. Johnson will take the lead. The follow-up here for Erik is Eidolon the Great Revel. This is a great start for him.
Yes. Eidolon is awesome in this matchup. Again, your life total is basically free, and Tom's deck is flush with cheap spells.
This is Tom doing math. Is Erik about to die somehow?
I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, 2 + 4 + 4 gets it done here. You have an Exalted Trigger from the Noble Hierarch, +1 from the Nexus.
Here's a Gitaxian Probe, a very painful one.
Well, this is a really bad sign for Erik. If Tom is willing to alternate cast a Gitaxian Probe in the face of Eidolon the Great Revel, it probably means he's setting up a kill.
Wild Mikado, Sacred Foundry, Arid Mesa, Mountain, another Eidolon the Great Revel is Johnson's hand. We're also oh no, he's definitely dead.
We call this the gut shot test.
Yeah.
It's just checking to see if there's a gut shot down there. It's the only card Tom cares about.
Tom just taking the top card off of his library, knowing it's a land and sacrificing it. So
Erik knows. You can see Erik's laughing. I mean, he knows he's dead.
Yep.
Tom's doing this.
We have seen this before. This is a groundswell. What's next? That is a Become Immense. Enough cards in the graveyard. Isn't that convenient?
That's Xaxes.
That's a turn 3 kill. Erik can do the math all he wants. Yeah, he is not alive anymore.
And that's the danger of the matchup here from the Mizzou side. Even though it seems solid, you need to have a removal spell.
Yeah.
You have to have removal.
Well, Tom gave him so much time to have removal. 2 turns.
Could have had a bolt. I guess he could have killed over the top of a bolt.
Yeah, very easily he could have killed over the top of the bolt. Tom Ross going to win game number 1 over Erik Johnson. In fact, up a game over Naya Zoo. Only took 3 turns, so that's a good start to the day.
Yep.
Well, to the sideboards we're going to go. Johnson needs more removal for this matchup. He's got 2 Skullcracks, a Deflecting Palm, a couple copies of Scab Clan Berserker, along with 2 Molten Rains, 4 Destructive Revelry, 2 Core Firewalker, and 2 Path to Exile. The Path to Exiles are certainly helpful.
Path to Exile is great in this matchup, but I also am a fan of Destructive Revelry, as it can hit Nexus and Spellskite, which are 2 cards that you know for sure they're going to have. Also, occasionally, in fact, has a card. The name is escaping me, but it's the 3-mana enchantment whenever a creature of yours is targeted +3.
Wild Defiance.
Wild Defiance. So they occasionally have Wild Defiance, and you're almost sure they're going to have Spellskite and Nexus. So I like bringing in Destructive Revelry alongside the Path to Exiles.
What do we see for the boss over there?
A Necropede, 3 copies of Nature's Claim, 3 copies of Twisted Image, a Relic of Pretendus, a Spellskite, a Piracy Charm, a Dismember, a Viridian Corruptor, 2 copies of Dispel, and Carrion Call. Really like the additional copy of Spellskite in this matchup. Also really like the 2 copies of Dispel. All of Erik's interaction is going to be coming from instants.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Path to Exile, Lightning Bolt, other removal spells. The sorcery speed removal like Rift Bolt is very easy for Tom to play around. You're primarily concerned with the instance, so I like the spell here.
The StarCityGames.com summer sale is something we talked about a little bit to kick off the day, and we're going to have the new special for you guys coming at 11. But for right now, we've got this one going for just a couple more hours, 25% off select promotional cards.
Yeah, you can see a variety of them up on the screen here. Some Judge foils, Game Day foils, full art cards, comic book promos, all available only for a couple more hours. 25% off, StarCityGames.com. Check out the sale right now.
As we do get ready here for game number 2, you do see Tom Ross, Erik Johnson. Ross is leading the pack. He's in first place after day number 1. He's done it before with Infect, both in Open Series events as well as invitationals. He's got 3 invitational top 8s with 2 wins, back-to-back during Season 2 and Season 3 of last year. 4 Open Series top 8s with a W, 1 a Pro Tour top 8 at Pro Tour Honolulu 2009, and then 4 GP top 8s on his resume. Parkour fan, a Mortal Kombat 10 enthusiast, and a 5-time Louisiana state champion. The only other person I can think of with that many state titles is one Adam Prozac.
Mm-hmm. And Tom, for someone who is known for playing aggressive strategies, the range of aggressive strategies he plays is pretty impressive. He's known for playing Infect, he's known for playing Zoo, he's known for playing heroic strategies. So unlike a lot of other aggressive players who are always playing White Weenie or always playing Mono Red Burn or what have you, Tom's range of beatdown decks is actually pretty expansive.
You know, what I appreciate about Tom is he's always attacking.
Always attacking, though.
I don't think I've ever seen
That's not true. There was an open where he played Esper Dragons,
Ugh.
right?
How'd he do in that one?
Not well.
Yeah, probably not great.
It's not well.
Probably not great. So Tom likes to give beatdowns, and he gives beatdowns very well, even at the Pro Tour that he top 8 in Honolulu. I remember his Naya deck.
Actually, you know, I think that I might be thinking of Andrew Boswell and not Tom Ross.
The Boss did play Esper Dragons in an Open Series event.
I don't know if Tom has actually cast Dissolve in Standard since I've been covering him.
It just wouldn't be right.
Would not be right.
You know, there's just some things that some people shouldn't do. Tom is not an island mage.
Yep.
Unless the island deck is giving beatdowns, I guess.
So, pretty interesting. Erik's list is fairly close to the one that I've been playing, and I would imagine that Erik just came to this list independent.
Yeah.
Down to the 2 copies of Mutagenic Growth, which I like a lot. The distinguishing factors here, he has 2 Rift Bolts, where I have a Curd Ape and a 20th Land, and he has 2 Abbots, where I have 2 Grim Lavamancers, and our mana bases are different. But the spells are very, very close to the same.
Drawing the same conclusions.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I've always felt was a little bit strange is, you know, once WoW Nakata got unbanned, we haven't really seen a huge uptick in Zoo.
Well, you know, part of it is the prevalence of Lightning Bolt. It's tough to, when your biggest payout just gets killed, but if you have a critical mass of creatures, you can power through that kind of stuff, and Mutagenic Growth is very powerful at breaking serve against Lightning Bolts.
Johnson going to start off with the Wooded Foothills and pass the turn back. Ross with the Verdant Catacombs as we are underway here in game number 2. Johnson will sacrifice that Wooded Foothills on Ross's end step. Go down to 19. We'll have a dual land on the way. Just the question is which one.
It looks like Erik has brought in his copies of Molten Rain.
Somebody wants to take out an Inkmoth Nexus. It's a little slow.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah.
I think on the play it's acceptable. On the draw, it's far too slow.
Johnson will take a draw step. He's got to get to the board early. He does have an Eidolon of the Great Revel in hand. There's a Stomping Ground. Johnson going to go down to 17. Here is the Eidolon. One of the very best threats in Modern, I must say.
Every time I have this card on the play with a 1-drop, I feel like I'm cheating. Because there's some decks that just straight up can't beat this card. You play against decks like Storm or some draws that Infect gets, they just can't hang with this card. And even when you don't just get to win the game for free, often you still get to win the game because you had Eidolon on turn 2.
They got to work to get through it. We're also searching up a Misty Rainforest. He's down to 19. He'll take a draw step here. Pendle Haven in hand, among many other options. Looks like he just picked up a copy of Might of Old Crozier. The boss surveying the land. Game number 1 on the 3rd turn. It's a very explosive deck that he is playing.
But this is a tough spot. I mean, missing Tom having no play on the 1st turn and now facing down Eidolon. A much better start for Erik than we saw in game 1.
Erik, if you are in the room, your side event is ready.
It's a Pendlehaven. It's a Spell Skite. Trigger the Eidolon. Ross going to go down to 17. Tie game as we go Johnson's way. Another Eidolon. That's got to make things really hard.
Yeah.
Arid Mesa. Destructive Revelry. Okay. Eidolon will trigger. Johnson going to go down to 15. Ross going to go down to 15 too from the Revelry, and now he's going to go down to 13.
I don't mind a Revelry here. I think my preference would have just been a second Eidolon. Tom is really hard pressed to play in the face of that card, especially with no Infect creature in play.
Well, he's found an Infect creature now in Inkmoth Nexus. There's a Blighted Agent. Perhaps Pendlehaven looking to provide a little bit of protection. And there's a trigger from Eidolon. Ross going to go down to 11 now. Johnson will sacrifice that Arid Mesa. We'll have a dual land on the way. Probably a Sacred Foundry, but we'll find out soon enough. And it is. Might be entering the battlefield untapped.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are about 5 minutes remaining to sign up.
Ross's hand looks pretty pump spell heavy.
But it's a big cost for Tom to be playing these pump spells. You know, it makes it harder for him to generate a kill. And on top of that, the Eidolon's triggering the whole time.
Lightning Bolt going to go after Blighted Agent. Johnson will have to take 2 to cast it. But again, he doesn't care too much about his actual life total.
No. With Spellskite off the table, like I said, it's come up for me before where you can get killed by Spellskite or Noble Hierarch alongside pump spells, but with Tom having none of that in play, Erik should be very aggressive using his life total.
There goes that Blighted Agent. Johnson's going to very quickly untap and take a draw. We know he's got another copy of Eidolon the Great Revel in hand. Looks like he just drew another one. Here's 3 mana. Where's he going to go? Molten Rain going after the Inkmoth Nexus. That'll trigger the Eidolon, but this could be a pretty powerful turn here.
Yeah, this is great. Really, any land that Erik targets here is good.
Yep.
I prefer just getting the Nexus off the table. As long as Tom doesn't have an Infect creature in the spot, there's not a whole lot he can do.
Here comes that Eidolon yet again. Blighted Agent, the draw step for Ross, but his life total is getting so low, he might not be able to fire off multiple pump spells to kill him.
No. You know, he might be in a spot next turn where he has to block with Blighted Agent and use Pendlehaven to pump to try to get the Eidolon off the table. It's a hard way to do it.
However, Tom just playing a Verdant Catacombs. I think you might know where he's going.
Yeah, this looks like a Dryad Arbiter plus a pump spell.
He's going to sacrifice that Verdant Catacombs very quickly, go down to 6. Dryad Arbor going to come out of this Verdant Catacombs. He might be thinking regular damage is a pretty good idea now. Johnson is at 8 after all. Ross will block. Pendlehaven. It gets a little more interesting now, especially if Johnson doesn't have a removal spell.
I think that Erik was probably better served in this spot simply playing another Eidolon and passing the turn.
He'll play the other Eidolon now with a mana available, and I believe he does have Lightning Bolt in hand. Come on in.
I mean, you can sense that, you know, there's potentially a trap coming here. Erik blocks. You know, Tom has a pump. Now Eric's forced to chump block. If he says no blocks, he can get killed by Become Immense.
Yep. This gets a little ugly. Tom going to follow up with a Glistener Elf. Lightning Bolt is going upstairs, and Lightning Helix will too. So, Erik Johnson's going to win game number 2 here over Tom Ross. Naya Zoo and Infect are all tied up. Now, that game gets interesting because Tom did have a Dispel in his hand at the end of the game. So you wonder what happens if he doesn't actually play that Glistener Elf.
Well, you know, he's liable to get killed by creatures as well as spells. And you don't know what Eric's holding back in that spot because he's clearly had some trepidation about casting stuff because of the Eidolon he's had in play. So it's hard to know if he's on creatures or on spells. And if you pass with your Dispel and he just goes, all right, Kurte, Wild Nakad will go, you're in a lot of trouble. So I think Tom had to take that risk there. Didn't work out for him, but he didn't have a very good sense of what Eric's hand was. It could have been literally anything in that spot.
Yeah, it is a very interesting situation as both players go back to the sideboard. Here's the big deal, though. Ross is going to be on the play for game 3, and this is a really, at least it feels that way, a play-draw-dependent matchup.
Yeah, I mean, when Tom gets to protect his creatures, it's a lot of the same, you know, mono red versus Bant Heroic in Standard. There's a lot of analogs there. When the Heroic deck has to tap out for its threats, and the mono red deck can pick it apart with removal spells, there's not a whole lot the heroic deck can do. But once you have a threat in play and you can protect it, you're a lot more mana efficient than the other deck. There's a lot of parallels to that sort of play pattern in this matchup, and being on the play is a huge deal.
Well, these players will play game number 3 in just a moment. In the meantime, we will talk about the StarCityGames.com newsletter. It's your source for Magic the Gathering news. It's been revamped and it's ready to go.
Yep, all the best content on Star City Games, cultivated by Cedric Phillips. Information about the Open Series, including a match of the week. You get exclusive deck lists and advice from various premium columnists, and an exclusive Cardboard Crack comic. Best of all, signing up is free at StarCityGames.com/newsletter.
Breaking out the F word early.
Yeah, frequently.
Getting ready for game
Furiously.
Getting ready for game number 3 here between Tom Ross and Erik Johnson. Do you have another F word?
I have plenty.
Infect versus Naya Zoo.
Funny you should ask.
We got a lot of Magic to watch today. We got 6 rounds of Swiss action. We'll cut to a top 8, and eventually we'll crown the champion here. Someone will walk away with $5,000, 25 Open Series points, and invite to our Season 3 Invitational. Good to have some modern action back on the Open Series. Next weekend, we'll go to Jersey for the Season 3 Envy. We'll do some Standard Legacy there, and then, hey, back to Modern in Cincinnati.
Yep. I like the opportunities to sort of jump headfirst into formats. You know, Modern for the last year and change was something I didn't get to cover a lot because the Open Series was very Standard and Legacy focused. But, you know, we had Baltimore earlier this year, and then we had that 2-week stretch of the Invitational and the Grand Prix where it really got immersed in the format, and now I enjoy it quite a bit.
It feels good to be back. I like Modern quite a bit. Again, this is a format where we wouldn't want to cover it every week, but I don't think you want to cover any format every week.
Exactly. I like every format in small doses.
Johnson quickly mulliganing. Does not like his opening hand. Looks like the boss is going to keep.
Except for build your own block, which I don't enjoy.
Oh, wow. Shots fired. Some people are going to come after you because of that.
Yeah, I know.
It's at Basic Mountain, by the way.
Yep. Fire all your shots.
Yeah. Let it be known. 140 characters. Just go to town.
Fire.
Yeah.
Another F word.
Another F word. Yep, fire. Zoo having a good performance this week. I know the one that you lended out, that player is 7-2.
Yep.
Now we see Erik Johnson at 8-1.
Ryan Dunn,
Okay.
friend of our buddy Rob Vaughn, borrowed my 75. He's 7-2 right now. Lost to Merfolk twice. Not a great matchup, but ran the table otherwise.
Those fishies are pretty good.
Spreading Seas is really punishing on my deck. I can barely cast my spells as is.
Yeah, probably.
So having lands turned into islands is just not good.
Probably pretty tough. Probably pretty tough. They start off with a Vial. You play a Wild Nicodle. They Spreading Seas you. The game's probably over now.
My deck could do nothing with colorless mana.
Ouch. Wow, that's embarrassing.
The 2-mana spells are Searing Blaze, Atarka's Command, Boros Charm, Eidolon of the Great, Revel, and Lightning Helix.
Yeah,
Could do literally nothing with colorless mana.
And you're all 1 and 2 mana spells.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
awesome.
tough. It's a tough card to beat.
That's really awesome. Here's a Noble Hierarch.
At least Erik has an Abbot. He can cast an Abbot off of an island and a land.
It's color sensitive.
Yeah, my deck is color sensitive.
Yeah. Bloodstained Mire Bloodstained Mire into Stomping Ground. Johnson down to 17.
Blood Moon's never been this good against a mono red deck.
We'll see how Johnson wants to start things off. Does he have a Nicodle, Curdaid, maybe a removal spell? It's going to be a Wild Nicodle. Great start here for Johnson. Ross very quickly draws a card. Looks like it was a copy of Pendlehaven. Does have a copy of Inkmoth Nexus in hand. You wonder how Molten Rain being played last game will influence things for Tom as well. It's unclear if Johnson has that card on the draw.
Yeah, but Tom's going to be a lot more conscious of how he sequences his lands for sure.
You can play a copy of Inkmoth Nexus, pass the turn back. Johnson will draw. He found a Path to Exile.
Path very important in this matchup. It's 1-mana interaction, and it doesn't matter if Tom has already pumped his creature, unlike things like Lightning Bolt.
Sacred Foundry on the battlefield untapped. Johnson down to 15. Ross about to go down to 16. Johnson going to pass the turn back. Looks like he's got a copy of Atarka's Command in hand as well. Become Immense to draw here for Ross.
Atarka's Command, another card to look out for in this matchup. It gives creatures reach, so it gives them the ability to block a Nexus.
That one doesn't come up very often.
Didn't know this until my creature said reach on them on Magic Online, because You don't play that card on defense very often.
No, you don't.
Comes up in the affinity matchup, and it comes up here.
Okay. Small little fun fact there.
Yep. I only bring this up because I didn't know it. It just had to happen once for me to know.
I know you're still looking to put a land in a play off of Tarkus Command to fire off a Searing Blaze.
Hasn't happened yet, but it will be screen capped when it does.
I can't wait.
Surprise Searing Blaze.
Verdant Catacombs, just passing the turn back.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Johnson thinking a Tarkus Command. Thinking, I'm not casting a Tarkus Command.
have been posted on pink paper.
Arid Mesa the draw. There's a basic mountain. And now, a Monastery Swiftspear. Here come the beatdowns. Tom's gonna have to get something going. You can tell he kind of knows that too.
Yeah, and on top of that, you know, he's in this weird spot where he kind of needs to start blocking things. But if he starts blocking things, then, you know, he's running out of either pump spells or infect creatures. So he's playing into Erik's removal.
Will the boss block? Looks like he will not. Gonna go down to 12. Johnson will pass the turn back. Rosso sacrifices Verdant Catacombs. Gonna go down to at least 11. There's a breeding pool. 2 cards in the graveyard as far as Become Immense is concerned. It's not on the cheap yet, not even close.
And this is going to be a lot more problematic for Tom to win. Doesn't know this yet, but he's playing against Path to Exile. Now, Apostl's Blessing is a great draw to that end, but it is much harder for Tom to set up sequences to play over the top of Path to Exile than it is for him to play over the top of Bolts, because the pump spells will naturally, the later pump spells you play naturally fizzle the initial ones that are on the chain.
Yeah, Apostle's Blessing, an interesting draw this turn. You see Tom's hand, he's got Blessing, Groundswell, Vines of the Vastwood, Become Immense, Windswept Heath, Pendlehaven over there. He's just trying to figure out the perfect sequence to be able to work his way around a couple of removal spells. Do I have to work my way around 1? Do I have to work my way around 2? How long can I wait? My Zoo opponent has a lot of cards in hand, and you have to remember, Tom has played Zoo a lot in his life, so he knows what's possible on the other side. Johnson just sitting here waiting patiently. He's got to like where he's at.
It's very easy for Erik to have a hand that untaps and kills him,
Yep.
Especially if he has Boros Charm to dump his unused mana into at the end of Tom's turn here.
Tom's going to play a Windswept Heath. I think pass the turn back. What I think here is that he feels like he can D up one more turn and then try to kill him the next turn. Now, I don't know if that's true, but we're going to find out. Johnson's draw, I think it was another path potentially.
Looks like a white card.
Yeah. Here come the beatdowns. Interesting stuff. All right.
I think, unless Erik's going for a kill here, I think I might have had a preference for him to leave back the Swift Spear if he's drawn a second path. Because then you're making Tom play through a Tarkus Command giving your creature reach, plus 2 copies of Path to Exile, because Erik has a mountain and a stomping ground to cast a Tarkus Command. His Erik basically can get a white source of mana, and then he can cast his 2 paths. And that's asking a lot out of Tom to get out of. And most likely you're only giving up 1 point of damage on this attack.
Here's a Dryad Arbor. It's blocking.
We're still seating a few players, so we'll be starting momentarily.
Will Tom pump? Maybe to try to slow down this Wild Nikado. Yeah, I think he's thinking pump spell. He's able to play Groundswell here because he did have a land under the battlefield.
And Tom does not care what this Groundswell trades with. If it trades with a Nikado, great. A Bolt, great. A Path, even better. It doesn't matter. First of all, he's just trying to get stuff in his graveyard so Become Immense becomes easier to cast. And second, if he slows down Eric's clock, that's good for Tom. And if he's able to get some of the removal spells out of Eric's hand in the exchange, that's even better.
Eric's going to bolt here. That'll trigger the Swift Spear. Curious how much Tom is willing to fight.
Because if Erik loses this Nacatl inside of combat here, his clock becomes very slow. He's looking at just a Swift Spear, and that gives Tom a lot of time to reassemble a hand that can go for the kill in one shot. If Tom is willing to fight here with Apostle's Blessing, it's just because of mana efficiency. Like I said, he literally doesn't care what he's trading with.
He just wants cards in the graveyard.
Anything, well, and getting to trade off with the Nacatl is good for him, and trading off with the removal is also good. So however this exchange works out, Tom's fine with it. You know, if you're Tom, ideally Eric's hand is just lands or creatures, and, you know, the Nacatl dies and it's easier for you to set up the kill. But if Erik plays back against you, that's fine. You just got to trade with the cards in his hand.
Raise your hand and the judge will bring you a blank waiver.
Tom is trying to get some interaction. He's trying to get Erik to play some spells from his hand.
Rules on buying and selling cards.
The question is, will Erik Johnson give in?
We have a sales booth.
Apostle's Blessing is going to resolve.
Come to the room. The Star City
Groundswell's good.
sales booth is happy.
Swift Spear is going to come across for 2. There's a prowess trigger there from the Lightning Bolt. Nacatl down.
We also have 3 authorized vendors.
Johnson
here. We have Ice Imports.
with 2 Path Exiles in hand.
Plus Games, and
Ross
Power
drawing a
Vintage.
card.
And they're also happy to buy cards from you or sell cards to you.
Pendlehaven.
With other players, however, the only transactions you can make are trades. You cannot.
Are we making a
cash
move here?
transactions with other players. You may not buy
Interesting.
cards
Yeah,
from
Tom's hand is very good against burn spells. I don't think he can play over the top of 2 paths right now.
I don't think he can either.
special guests here. We have all
But the question is how aggressive he's going to get, because he doesn't have to shove. He can just do this.
Please take
He can balance it out.
Exactly.
to stop by their booths and pick up some of the wonderful work that they
He might be thinking Become Immense. And it looks like he is.
Standard Premier IQ, if you have an empty seat across from you,
Eric's thinking Path to Exile.
raise your hand and keep it raised until my friend Ricky has come to check in with you so we can establish whether there are any missing players.
Tom looking at Vines. Last card in hand. Last card in hand is Nature's Claim.
We don't want any of your cards
Yep.
to become
He's going to try to go for the W here, but Erik has another copy of Path to Exile.
And the last card left in Tom's hand, Nature's Claim, is not worth very much.
No, it's not.
is your head judge from
Tom feeling as though he had to go for it this turn.
Justin Red.
He has burn spells covered. It's 2 copies of Path, and 2 copies of Path is going to be hard for him to beat regardless.
Yep.
As I said, my name is Justin. Welcome.
It would involve Spell Skite, Dispel, a different set of cards.
Right.
So Tom will get to search up a land, but his attempt to go for the W does not work there.
I would like you to raise
Johnson
your
is still with the Tarkus command in hand, Swift Spear on the battlefield.
hand. Judges out here helping
And there are cards that Johnson can draw this turn to kill Tom.
raise your hand, call judge. They will be there to help you.
So Johnson will take a draw step.
Mutagenic Growth gets it done.
Goblin Guide?
Goblin Guide.
Throughout the day, I would like you
Because right now,
It's basically any burn spell or haste creature.
correct.
to play quickly.
3 damage spells will get it done.
Opponents. Communication eliminates a lot of potential problems.
Looks like he's going to cast command. 3 damage +1/+1's probably the mode.
And so
Get in here for a bunch. Tom, just thinking, am I dead?
at this point,
Nope.
you should have your
Time for the boss to draw.
your name at the top, your table number at the top. I would like my judges
Breeding
to
Pool
go
was the
ahead
draw,
and
not
make
very
their
helpful.
pick.
Here comes Noble Hierarch.
And I don't know if I liked Erik firing off that spell last turn. I guess it's a good window to do so, but he can't attack right now. There's Pendlehaven plus Dryad Arbor.
Well, he can.
It's bad to attack.
Yeah.
He's
He can.
allowed to.
Don't tell him what he can't do. Oh, he can attack.
The man controls his own actions.
That's
I'm just
correct.
saying it's not a good attack right now.
To make yourself known.
I believe Dispel may have been the draw.
Is Todd Anderson
Well,
here?
Nature's Claim. We're going to work our way into a little bit of a longer game here now.
And really, if Tom draws a blocker, he can start getting on the offensive with Dryad Arbor.
Yeah.
Erik's 10.
10-2.
Todd's here.
Might be thinking regular damage now.
Jacob Baker. Is Jacob Baker here? Last call for Jacob
Johnson, a lot of good draws in his deck.
Oh, yeah. Almost any spell is very powerful here.
Eidolon's great. Any burn spells, great. Sacred Foundry passing the turn, not as great.
Jason
Ross, I
Jair.
believe, just drew a
Is
copy of
Jason
Vines.
Jair here?
Dryad Arbor.
Call for Jason Jair.
Hiya. There's an Exalted trigger there, too. That's an attack for 3. Uh-oh, Swift Spear on D?
Well, if Erik is playing to a burn spell right now, he has to respect the fact he could potentially die.
This game is taking a turn. There's a Swift Spear.
That feels like a block a little too early for me.
Judges, once you have
The one on the
taken
previous turn.
attendance, if you could pass out the tokens.
Let's do it again. Let's do that again.
Like with Tom at 2, your creatures are pretty valuable. It's not like they're just jump blocking or bust.
Yikes.
In 10 minutes.
There's an Eidolon.
Please pay attention to the round timer. If you are
But is Erik jump blocking here? I mean, if he did it last turn,
tardiness in 0 minutes.
I mean, I suppose you don't have to worry about Become Immense plus another spell. But it's not like he's in the clear now.
That's true.
But I don't know what the plan is. If you're chump blocking every turn, assuming that you have lethal,
I'm not sure what the plan is right now either.
because if Erik bricks on this draw, if he respects Become Immense, which all the previous chump blocks imply,
Yep.
he has to block again.
Looks like Lightning Helix was the draw. And I believe Lightning Helix probably gets the job done.
Yeah, because Tom can't dispel.
Yeah, he can't cast a spell. Johnson is passing. On the upkeep, he's helixing. And there's a trigger. So what Tom needs to have happen here is for Johnson to miss his Eidolon trigger. Ooh. Almost did.
Ooh.
Almost did. Erik Johnson going to win this match here over Tom Ross. 2-1. Nyazu is going to take care of Infect. Got pretty close there.
It definitely did. Eidolon, a huge player in this matchup, and the Path to Exiles and Erik's sideboard were huge there.
Yeah, both of them a very, very big deal. Showed up at the right time, able to help Johnson win this match over Tom Ross. 2-1. Nyazu's going to move on to 9-1. Infect will slide down to 9-1. Tom Ross's first loss on the weekend.
A matchup that I think is solid from the Nyazu side of the table. Like I said, my list compared to Erik, I think he's giving up a couple percentage points, but the post-board setup with a lot of removal spell, you have Destructive Revelry to fight over Nexus and over Spellskite, and Path to Exile, as you saw, is just a huge player.
No, absolutely. Very, very big deal. So again, congratulations to Erik Johnson on his win.